Well, thank you for having me, and um, Happy New Year to everybody. Um, well, I think we have to be clear, first of all, what the energy crisis has been in Europe since the war began. A year before the escalation of the war, the invasion of Ukraine, Mr. Putin was already planning an energy war. He started cutting off gas selectively to Europe a year before, and before the war even began, he shut off the huge Nord Stream 1 pipeline, causing a crisis in Europe. The gas that's still going across Ukraine, now this is quite interesting. The Ukrainians, even though they're the victims of an invasion, they put that aside and were willing to transit some gas across their country to supply their neighbors until their neighbors could become in Eastern Europe until they could become independent of Russian gas. Everybody's had plenty of time to become independent of Russian gas, and almost all countries had plans. It's not a problem. And so this contract came to the end, and I think we have to respect the Ukrainians that saying they've done enough under war to transit Russian gas across their country. They have no further interest. In principle, everybody knew about this. It was priced in, and it should not cause a big difficulty. Of course, a couple countries are complaining, especially Slovakia, but that's not a matter of that country having any energy crisis, any lack of gas. It can get gas from other sources. However, the government was making about $500 million in profits transferring the gas across the country in what we call transit fees. And this is what they're upset about. But if you look at the entire EU, everyone else sees that this is necessary, and there's no reason to continue bringing Russian gas in during a war.
ما بدائل الاتحاد الأوروبي سيد توماس طالما أنه هذه الخطوة محدودة لن تضر يعني القارة الأوروبية وهي كما وصفتها بأنها خطوة ضرورية. ما بدائل الجانب الأوروبي للغاز؟
Yes. Well, the structure of the European gas market has changed dramatically since the war began. And really, this is Mr. Putin likes to present himself as a great Russian nationalist. Well, any Russian nationalist who's lost his country such a big business, they have the world's first or second biggest gas fields in Western Siberia, and they used to massively supply Europe. 40%, maybe 45% of Europe's imports came from Russia. And that was totally lost because of this war. Putin cut it off to try and force the countries of Eastern Europe to be in an energy crisis and to give up support for Ukraine. That didn't work. So what has happened over this period of time, massive amount of American LNG primarily came in to replace the Russian gas. 67% in this last year, of all the fracking gas, of all the LNG that the America exports has gone to Europe, and that has provided 47% of the total imports of Europe. This is a huge change, and it's a market Putin basically gave to the Americans. Number two, there's massive gas comes by pipeline from Norway, also some LNG, and number three from Algeria. Other countries such as Qatar are fairly far down the list. So Europe should not have a problem getting gas. It's going to be expensive, and that's another story. Europe made some mistakes in this last heating season, or some mistakes in policy, becoming too dependent, in my opinion, on windmills. And now we've had in November and early December in Europe, we had what the Germans call Dunkelflaute, which means it was dark, so the solar didn't work, and there was no wind, and it was cold. And so massive amount of gas was taken out of storage. Europe had extra gas in storage for the coming year. They're in a very good situation. But because of what I see as the over-reliance on renewables, they were forced to take gas out of storage and run it down. They'll have enough gas for this year, but the worry is building it up again for next year, and so they're going to have to pay a higher price. LNG that's now going to Asia, they're going to have to offer more money for it than the Asians to divert it to fill their storage over the next several months. But in general, there shouldn't be a crisis, but this causes uncompetitiveness and difficulties, definitely economic difficulties in Europe.
شكرا جزيلا لك سيد توماس أودينيل الخبير في شؤون الطاقة، كنت معنا من برلين.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
في الساعة الثانية